So now this area is now what we call Delta State.
Delta State, yes, exactly, yes.
Delta State.
Yes.
Richard, it's interesting because you pretty much summed up where you're from, where your name originated from, and where you originated from. But where did that love for the art? There must have been someone or somebody in your life that brought that out of you. Is there someone you know that you can really look back and go,
yeah, easily my mom. My mom was a fantastic dancer, singer, and everything. And I got my dancing from her. I got my love for anything fashion from her. She sold wrappers, and she guided my fashion sense from a very early stage. My mom was a very fashionable woman, and she loved to also dress me up, nicely, and so that was it. But over and above that, I I always say that I am a child of television. I say that always very deliberately because the minute I could watch television, I fell in love immediately with the people I found inside that little box. And all I wanted to do as a kid was enter that box. I just wanted to be among the people inside the box, not those of us watching the people in the box. And I kept saying, in fact, I was one of those kids who thought that the people in the box actually lived. I would ask my father would tell me, no, it's just, but I said, but I want to be inside the box. I want to be inside the box. So from day one, it was clear to me that I wanted to be in the box. And so those who were ahead of me kept saying to me that, oh, for you to be in the box, the closest thing was studying theater arts. Yes. And one of the earliest actors I've ever admired in my life, outside of those abroad, apart from John Wayne and all of that, was Jimmy Sholanke. I used to see him on television plays in Warri, and I loved the timbre of his voice and everything about him, and I was like, damn, this man, I want to be like one of these guys, And I had the chance again of meeting him when I was in the university in Benin. Yes, he came for one of the programs that we did in Benin, and I met him. I will never forget. I went to him. I had my driver's license at the time, and I gave him and I said, "Please, I need your autograph." I still have that driver's license until today, from 1980. From 1980 till today, it's 43 years. So he's one of the people that I had the privilege of also working with on stage when I graduated from the University of Benin and I came to Lagos to start hustling. So himself, Jide Ogungbade, who unfortunately has passed, but I also had the privilege of working with him. He directed me in a lot of stage plays. In fact, I became famous on stage in Lagos due to some of the plays that he directed me in. So I had the rare privilege of meeting my heroes, that were on television. When I was younger, Mr. Olu Jacobs used to be the one we watched on that. I think there was a Ribena commercial where
Ribena commercial, and there was another one called Village Headmaster.
Yes. So I had the rare privilege of meeting Uncle Olu Jacobs, working with him becoming my daddy. I met Chief Eleimi. I've worked with Dejumon Lewis, who was village headmaster. I've worked in the movie with him called Crossroads. I've worked with Melville, Obriango, all the people that were village headmasters. So I lived the dream. I touched hands and body with all my childhood heroes that were on television, and I'm still on television, bro.
I love
I'm,
it.
I'm still on television. 40
But
years later, I'm still on television, man.
you know,
So yeah,
for
yeah,
4 decades, and
yes,
I
yes.
so you have to walk many of us through the early stages of Nollywood itself.
Mm,
I think for me, I want to say Nigerian films, but I have to give an homage because we have Hollywood, we have Bollywood, and you are right. We do
mhm,
have to give an homage to Nollywood because,
yeah.
and we're going to go into that, because that also has brought me full circle, as you know,
Hmm.
back.
To
And
back home. Hmm.
back home, and not only back home, but it's gone. It came back home for the world to say, "Oh, who is this guy? How crazy
Hmm.
is that?" Right. So
Hmm.
walk us through, for those of us who are watching now, listening to you, this conversation we're having, Nollywood, for you, because you were the beginning of the early stages of it.
Hmm.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, so for me, Nollywood evolved from Nigeria has always had a very robust entertainment industry, a film industry. I mean, we've had filmmakers like Herbert Ogunde and Ola Balogun, Wale Soyinka, and all of those. The Amata, the head of the Amata family, the father of the Amatas, who most of them are also filmmakers today. So we've had filmmakers, Jabadu, Edu Boma, and all of that. So they used to work in the old format. Afolayan, Kula Afolayon's father, Baba Salah and Co. So they used to work in the old formats, of course, the 35 mm format, or the 16, the whatever, until the digital transformation. So Nollywood. So for some people like me, I always say that the name Nollywood, even though it came from when we started the digital or videos, started when we started working on through video. That is when the Nollywood came. Yes, VHS and co. That's when the Nollywood came. For me, Nollywood just a generic name for Nigerian films or for the Nigerian movie industry. But if we want to keep with tradition, we say it is when we started working in the digital format or started working on videotapes format that the name Nollywood came, because it was by, I think it was the New York Post reporter who named films that were made, not in 35 but in this digital format, the Nollywood, that gave us the Nollywood name, which of course is traced back to Nebwe, who an Igbo guy who at the time used to do would do Yoruba films. Ironically, Igbo guy, business guy, who would do Yoruba films, not on the long format anymore, not on the 35 mm format, because the most of Nigerian films, the people who were the real devotees of it were the Yoruba filmmakers who kept the tradition on. And so this guy was now making films in videotapes, but not on the large format, was making these films. And after a while, he then decided to try an Igbo one. He then decided to try an Igbo film, which was Living in Bondage. And that was like a bigger crossover film, which not only Yoruba people now watched it, but of course, not only Igbo people now watched it, but Nigerians, a lot more Nigerians watched it. And over time, people started doing the films in English. So not just showing them on television anymore, we're putting them in these cassette, VHS tapes and selling them. So the final consumer wasn't just the guy sitting in his house watching streaming from the local television authority, but could buy the tape and put it in a video player and watch it at his own convenience. And that is how Nollywood was born, so to speak. And of course, when our children went abroad, they took these films abroad, and over time, most African shops that were in Europe or in the Americas, they not only started selling, they were not only selling Nigerian foods and items, but also selling Nigerian
Yeah.
films. It was
Yes.
yes, and it was this phenomenon of somebody noticing how Nigerians
Yes.
over the weekend do not go to what's that video thing that translated into Netflix later on. There was a
Uh,
video,
uh, uh, um, uh, it was called
block something busters, the video
yeah, blockbusters. Blockbusters.
blockbusters. Yes. So this writer noticed that the Africans in America don't at the weekend didn't go to blockbusters to stack up for the weekend. Instead they went to African shops to stack up these films that were made locally in Nigeria, and they were avoiding blockbuster or whatever. And he investigated this phenomenon and then gave the name Nollywood as films made from Nigeria and all of that. People have had all kinds of challenges with that name. I don't think that it should be something that should be. It is not a. It does not in any way belittle or demean the quality or the magic that we have done here. It is just in keeping in tradition with the woods that had existed before we came in, and it is a lot of respect, or like to use your word, homage, for the films that we were making here at the time, because nobody knew what was happening. But the minute they discovered what we were doing, it was good enough to be compared to the two woods that had existed for years before we came in. So the introduction of a third wood that started to compete immediately, because the minute we were introduced as one of the woods in the world, we started to compete immediately because we started hovering between second and third in terms of the amount of films that we were producing on a weekly basis. So instead of people to look at it as a derogatory term, it was actually never a derogatory term. It was a homage to the kind of work that these people immediately started to do, and the world was noticing and the world said, look, the level at which these guys are working, though it is not on 35 or 16 or whatever, it is good enough to be called one of the woods in the world, and the world should take notice of what these guys are doing. And that is how, over time, we have kept producing films and kept improving on the quality and a few of them would escape and break the glass ceiling from time to time. And of course, the new streamers now came, Netflix and Prime Video. And of course, because of their own quality control, they brought the boxes that must be ticked. And of course, filmmakers have started ticking the boxes, and we are ticking the boxes now with our eyes closed, without even worrying anymore. When we started ticking those boxes, we used to be very frightened by the boxes. You check, have you ticked this one? Yes. Have you ticked this one? Yes. Okay, are you sure we are qualified for them to stream us down? Yes. Now we can shoot a film eyes closed and send it to them, and of course until the recent success and
Yes.
breakaway success of Black Book, which thankfully
Which one?
I had the privilege of being in and being part of the
Yeah.
producers as well, and again, the rest they say is history. But that
We're gonna go to Black
so
Book.
yeah, so this
Yeah.
is in a nutshell is Nollywood,
Yeah.
how Nollywood has
Yeah.
evolved. Yeah.
But it's also important to know that in our era, cinema was thriving very well in, especially in our part of the world, Warri, Sapele, Benin, which was
Hmm.
Bendo. Cinemas were thriving, so there was a lot of kung fu films, right? Bruce
Yes.
Lee. I remember in
Yeah.
1974 when he passed away. All the
American films as well. Yes.
yes, the John Wayne, the Cowboys, but saying that, there were, I think you could also elaborate on this. A lot of our elderly filmmakers studied out of the UK, and a lot of them were shooting in 35 millimeter and had to transport their films to the UK to get watched.
Hmm.
Do you remember that era?
Of
and,
course,
and
of
and it
course.
was a bit too expensive for the common man to be part of the movie industry. So this part of Nollywood actually helped, gave everybody an opportunity. Would you agree with that?
Of course,
That whole
that's
era?
what
Yeah.
that's the disruption of the digital era. What the
Mm.
digital era brought to film is to democratize this space, is to make it cheaper for somebody to carry a VHS camera, point it at objects and shoot without having to do the whole cranking up of the entire 35 thing, and not having to worry about how much they will use to buy the films and how much they will use to develop the films in the UK and do post production. Post production alone was a nightmare. Um, Even before you got to post production, just being able to afford to shoot in 35 was a nightmare, not to mention post production. And then not having enough cinemas as well that you could screen these films. So our filmmakers were not making a lot of money. Uh, Towards the end of the late 70s and early 80s, the signs were on the wall. The signs were already written on the wall that this was a dying era for us. Don't forget, our economies were also at this time taking a dip. Currencies were beginning to get devalued, and exchange rates were beginning to tilt in the favor of the Western world. And so, with the digital revolution, the filmmaking space was democratized, and the field became a more level place. There was a lot of scorn. There was a lot of scorn from the older filmmakers at the time for us who were younger filmmakers and were using the digital form to shoot our films. I remember having all kinds of healthy discussions and arguments with Uncle Eddie Uboma at the time. They would tell us that we were not doing film, but it was only a question of time before film was going to be redefined. After all, Kodak as a company got the shock of the digital revolution. Fuji and all these filmmaking companies had the shock of their lives because that space became transformed. Today, even the big camera format is almost non-existent. Today, even the Scorseses of the world and the and the Camerons of the world are using digital cameras to shoot their films. Nobody is talking about 35 mm. Nobody is talking about 35 anymore. All of that is moribund. If you shoot in those formats now, it's just for the purely for academic purposes. That's what technology does. Technology has completely transformed the filmmaking space and has created a new world of 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 a level playing field where young people can walk in without any kind of formal training and just start working in the movie industry, and we are better for it.
Talking about Netflix and the success of where we are, Bloomberg says it best. And this is Bloomberg, and I quote: "The Black Book, this film, is a reminder of the power and potential of Nigerians rapidly growing in the film industry at this time." This is Bloomberg. Now, The Wired says this. It says, "This movie is dominating global streaming charts, proving Netflix investment in Nollywood is paying off." Now, one of my favorite magazines, Fortune magazine, says that Black Book has stormed the streaming scene, ranking among global English language titles. Now, as we are having this conversation, from the moment this was released in Korea to this very moment, we're talking about numbers 11.2, 11.5, 7, just consistent. They're top 10 till this very moment. For it to cross over and top 10 in America. Now, how does that make you feel?
Elated, shocked, shocked beyond words, because I keep wondering what are those elements that we had in the black book that resonated across all these countries. Over for the number of weeks that it has stayed in South Korea, in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in Brazil,
USA,
England,
the Nordics.
And I'm like, did we see this coming? Not exactly. We knew that we were going to be successful in Nigeria because we were very deliberate and intentional about what we were doing. Painstaking decisions, a lot of monies. Oris, I couldn't shave totally for 13 months. If I had things to do, even when we were on break, I'll just trim my beards a little bit, wear a cap and do those interviews or do the things I needed to do that were outside of Black Book. I had to leave the hair on my head on because I couldn't regrow it. They didn't want the director was very insistent that he didn't want any addition to my beard. He didn't want to do any makeup on my head. He wanted my head the way grown naturally and everything. So I had to bear all of that. So we knew that it will come out well, but on the scale that this film is doing today, becoming the biggest African title ever so far, we didn't see this one at all. To say that would be too cocky. The director did say to me that if we do all the things that we're going to do, we'll be the biggest film in Nigeria. That was what we were thinking, maybe Africa, but that we were going to break the glass ceiling in Netflix streaming. We didn't see this coming. Not in the way it did. Yeah.
Even for the BBC to say this, and I'm going to repeat this, and I know I've said this before, but I have to go back to this. The BBC says the Black Book has made historic success, not just in Africa, but also Nollywood's first #1 on Netflix globally. Most watched African Netflix title and top 10 in 38 countries across the globe and counting.
Out counting, yes.
I'm counting that. That just that's kind of solidified everything we started. Your journey, and this, and then we also let's not forget South America, places like, of course, Nigeria. Almost every African country is still, as we speak right now, top 10 since September. Chile, Nicaragua, Colombia, Lebanon, Finland, Honduras, Argentina. Number 6 globally, number 6 globally, still back and forth from the release in September to now.
Oh, wow.
Now, and on that note, I kind of, was that what prompted Ankele Films, I believe?
Anako
Film. Was that what prompted Anako Film to bring you in as chairman of the board? Because I have to be honest, you deserve that title. You've been around.